How's it going, guys? Welcome back to yet another episode of Vaughn Coleman Presents. I am, of course, your host, Vaughn Coleman. And before we get started, I do want to go ahead and share my work. So, for those of you that don't know, I am a writer. I'm an editor too, but I'm doing my first ever creator-owned comic book, and that is Living Legends Issue 1. So, it's a superhero comic, and it's set 20 years after World War III and follows this teenage boy whose name is Miles Hanksley. He's the son of a World War III veteran who grew up idolizing the superheroes that fought in the war. And then one day, he's this adventurous kid, and he finds his crystal, and he gets struck by lightning while holding it in his hands, and it gives him lightning powers and super speed. And so he decides to set out on his own and become a superhero. Eventually, I wanted to become a team book. I was inspired, by like Chris Claremont's X-Men run, New Teen Titans, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, all sorts of stuff. It's like my love letter to superheroes and an outlet for just tons of my creative ideas. It's going to, evolve into a team book, but I really wanted to focus on the one hero. And I do have a double-page splash that gives you a preview of what happened in World War III. I do plan on doing a prequel series as well, but for now, let's stick with this one, right? I have a trading card that's going to be done by my friend Jules, so make sure to check that out. She goes by Juju also. So sign up, you get that free trading card. It's the only way to get it. And be on the mailing list. We have almost 200 people on there. So definitely sign up if you're interested in that. But enough about me, all right? Without further ado, I'm Vaughn Coleman, but we want to know who he's presenting. And that is, of course, the great John Hervey. How you doing?
Doing well, Vaughn. How about you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. A lot of work, but you don't realize how much, and I'm sure you know this as a writer, publisher, you think writing, okay, now I just need to pay the artist, and you don't realize how much everything else is. Like, oh, you gotta.
Yes.
I just think, oh, because people think, oh, using your phones, posting on social media. I'm like, that's work to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you think I want to just be tweeting the same witty caption? Okay. What else do I have to say about this book? You
Exactly.
know.
Like, and I need to change it up a little bit. I don't want to keep saying the exact same thing. That's what people don't realize. It's like it's so many jobs. There's the marketing hat. I mean, there's the production hat. There's the editing hat.
Yeah.
Then you're good. Then I mean, your campaign looks great, man. I
Thank you.
mean, I love the mixture of vibes. I mean, your artist is phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
It
he's so
has,
good.
and I love that. You know, it has kind of that. It has like that old school manga feel to me. You know what I mean? Like I look at the artwork and I think of like a sanctuary, or something like it has that style, but it's still very much like it's not just stylized. I mean, you're like this artist is killing it.
I know.
You know?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to send him this clip and be like, "See, I told you, people like your, because he's which he knows he does. He's so good, man. I mean, the thing is too. I almost didn't really see it as that much anime until everyone's looking at it, going, "Yeah, it is manga, it is anime," and I'm like, "Yeah, a little bit. It's that mixed." I liked it because it was like that his style. I went through so many artists
Yeah,
to find one that I thought was the perfect fit for this book, right?
yeah,
And I thought like he's a perfect blend between Western and like Eastern styles, in my opinion.
I
Because you
agree.
could see him, he draws like obviously. Look, anyone with X-Men sample pages is gonna, help. Also, especially when there's lightning involved, because if I could see you could draw good lightning, that's good.
Yeah.
Or younger faces too, like younger characters. I mean, there's that infamous. I think it's John Byrne uh, panel where it's two babies in a bathtub and they look like old men. I don't know if you
Oh
ever
yeah,
seen
those are it's like Scarlet Witch's kids, I think.
that.
You
you
know,
know,
and and John Burns might do, but they do look
yeah.
like two. They either look like two midgets or two old midgets. But no, because it's hard.
Yeah.
That's not easy. I mean, he's done a good job. Like sometimes he'll draw Franklin, and Franklin looks like a kid, and then sometimes you're like, yeah, I could tell he had a lot of pages to hammer out. He hammered that out, and that looks like a little old man,
Yeah.
right? Just
I
like
mean, you don't realize how much artists have to draw because you're like, oh, they just draw and make stuff pretty until you realize how I'm realizing how much shit put in my script. Oh, they got to include this. They got to be able to draw all these things. And a writer, I mean, again, going back to the idea of wearing hats, a writer has to do so much. But I'm curious because you're a writer now, you've got all this stuff. What got you into writing?
oh man, on it was comics. growing up, uh, picking up comics. Back in the day, you could get them at the local, grocery store. You could get them at the drugstore. So I'd be able to get them at the drugstore. My mom saw that I was actually starting to read. Because first, honestly, I first picked them up, and I would just kind of go through the sequential art,
Hmm.
kind of make up the stories on my own. But then I was like, started reading it, okay, started enjoying the stories, and then next thing I knew, I was reading voraciously. I was reading comics, and then I started reading fiction and science fiction books. It all stemmed from it all started with comic books, and just it really lit my imagination. And it sounds crazy, but as a kid, I mean, I'd have a comic book and I'd have a dictionary next to me, and I'd be looking up words because like I was a kid. I didn't know a lot of the words that were being utilized, and I actually had an interest. I wanted to know what was going on in the story. So
Hmm.
I'm reading, and I'm learning new vocabulary. Then it got me reading other kinds of books, and it just grew from there. So comics are they're my original and number one medium.
That's awesome, man. I mean, getting into comics. What? So I know you mentioned it because, man, getting them from the newsstand. I wish they were available there. I would have definitely started much earlier than I did if they were more accessible. But I am curious,
Yeah.
what was your break in? Like, do you remember the first comics you got?
In terms of the exact first comics I got, I remember. So I mean, you know, I I knew heroes. I knew like Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman from like the Super Friends. I knew there was an old Spider-Man cartoon that they would replay, and like the Hulk and Captain America. So I'll pick those books up. I wasn't really in rhyme or reason. I just kind of knew those heroes. And then one day, I think it was, I want to say it was Avengers 182 or 183, and that was a burn. That was burn art. John Byrne. I saw it and it just captivated me. He had this giant Crusher Creel on the cover, and he's holding Miss Marvel like he was King Kong, and Iron Man's attacking him. And I didn't know the Vision at the time, and I didn't know the Beast, but they were attacking him. And I was just like, this looks so cool. So I picked up the book and I read it so many times, like in the same day, just kept rereading that same issue. It was so good. And I just remember telling my mom that evening, we're eating dinner at the dinner table, and I still got my comic open. And she's just like, put away your comic. I'm like, Mom, I'm now a comic book, collector. It's a big profession to make. And she's just like, that's good, baby. Finish your string beans.
Oh yeah, it's the world to us, and they never understand it. You
Yeah.
know.
She's like, Chad, that's good. Just finish your dinner.
Yeah, that's great. But it
But
is reading. It's
it is reading. And the thing is now, fast forward decades, and I've been writing, and you realize that even when you see a good comic and you see the words that are even written on the page, there is so much writing around the little bit that you see on the page
right.
that it's like the scripts can be, and mine are, very full, but the
Mm,
artist is actually providing they're actually providing a lot of what is written, so you don't need to have it in writing.
exactly.
So you're showing, the words are giving you the parts that you can't see.
Yeah, it's almost
You
like you
know,
write so that way you don't have to write, if that makes sense. Like
absolutely. You
the
you
less word
write,
balloons you could put.
you write, and you've got an amazing artist, so your artist can translate a lot of that into the art. So then you don't need to have it with tons of captions and tons of, you it's like the art becomes the big rocks, the big boulders, and then you kind of fill it in with the smaller rocks and the pebbles, which are important, but you fill it in, and then you have this tapestry that requires both the art. You should be able to tell 80-90% of the story just by thumbing through it, but then if you want to get that essential last part to really know what's going on, you got to read it. And when I first worked in comics, I worked for Michael Davis, who was one of the founders of Milestone. He had a he had to deal
Oh,
with
really?
yeah.
You worked with Milestone?
I didn't work with Milestone, so after Milestone, he had to deal with Motown, and I got to work over there in L.A. In the Mile area. They set up a shop, and the imprint was called Motown Machine Works, and it was supposed to be comics and animation. All they made were comics, which was totally fine by me. A buddy of mine got me on board. I was in college at the time, and he was an editor, and I was just basically a gopher. But then I got the opportunity to do some editing, ended up writing one of the stories, and they were published through Image. And one of the things that we would sometimes do is we would go over to Golden Apple on Wednesdays to pick up books.
Oh,
And
I know the
sometimes
place.
Michael would come with us. Oh yeah, man. Michael would come with us sometimes. And his method of picking up a book, I mean, like, you pick up a comic and you start reading it, right? That's what any regular person does. I mean, you read the book from one end to the other. He flips through the book first. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, if this comic is a well-produced comic, he's like, I should be able to tell 80 to 90% of what's going on by flipping through it. Then when I go back and read it, it should just fill in the parts that I don't know. So it's like, if I come away not without an understanding, then it was underwritten. But if it's just telling me things that I can already see, then it's overwritten. I was like, so I always took that to heart as a creator, saying like, listen, they're inherently as a writer, because I think as writers, you can tell the brilliance of an artist because it's displayed there on the page. And as a writer, we want to show like, hey, I'm a good writer. So, you want to have a lot of stuff on the page to show, hey, I know how to write. But sometimes the brilliance of writing is just the transference of what's written into art and the simplicity of it. And it's just a good flowing story.
Absolutely.
So sometimes the simplicity of it can be lost. And you're like, oh man,
When you get
didn't seem like that writer did too much. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd have that in earlier drafts. I'm like, dude, look at how many. This whole panel would just be people standing in word balloons. Nah, and a couple of those are okay, but you gotta, keep it going.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the beauty of comics as an art is, I've come full circle when it comes to media. I mean, comics, my first love. Absolutely love seeing my heroes being turned into live action. The heroes that I love turned into live action and in animated representations. It was fun. It's fun to see that. But there's nothing better than the medium of comics, because at the end of the day, your constraints are your page rates and your imagination. You can do so much in a comic, but if you tried to do all those things per se in an episode or even in a movie, your budget is it's like every comic is going to have like the budget of like, the Infinity War series, for the movie, because you want to go all over the place. You want to do all these amazing things. And part of the problem that we're seeing in the mainstream is they are writing comics for the sake of making, one of the many, there's a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's
one of the issues.
Top 100 problems.
100. So problem 89 is they're writing comics for the sake of making TV and movie scripts.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, that's when you end up having a bunch of stuff happening in coffee shops. You have a bunch of stuff with just a bunch of talking heads, because they're worried about, if this translates, what's the budget going to be?
Yeah.
When you write a comic, you should never worry about what the budget's going to be. You should it shouldn't even be translatable into a movie or TV, because you should be doing some awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's another. I had heard that like they don't do as many masked characters anymore because they want to make sure that they can show off their actors. That's why like the last couple Spider-Man posters have been dreadful, because they don't have Spider-Man's. They have them without the mask, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't care if you get the biggest Hollywood star. Spider-Man is a bigger star. That mask is more iconic than any working actor's face.
And that's the problem. So think about this. Growing up as a kid, I never bought Bruce Wayne comics. I never bought Batman. Clark Kent comics. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see Batman. I wanted to see Superman. I wanted to see Spider-Man. I wanted to see my guys. But the problem is the movies are about the alter egos. Right? So you're getting a Clark Kent movie when you want to see a Superman story. You're getting a Bruce Wayne story. And honestly, I don't want to see a Bruce Wayne story.
Well, even then, I think that's part of it, but I think like Bruce Wayne, I actually thought was not done. I think I liked the new Batman movie a lot, actually. So
Because that
people,
was a Batman story. As much as
right?
I'm not, as much as I think they could have picked a better actor, it was a Batman story.
Yeah, it was a detective story
It was a
too.
detective story.
It
Yeah,
was, but I do think that Bruce Wayne wasn't handled well. But I think
agreed.
it was okay because it was a Batman story. But I think that like if I were to see that man in a crowd, I'd be like, yeah, that's Batman. I'd be
I,
like, oh, the basement dweller? What? Who's a
dude,
billionaire and has trauma?
the billionaire basement dweller. Absolutely, that's Batman. The whole
Yeah,
city knows that, right?
yeah.
But
I
they got away with it because you said it. Bruce Wayne was secondary to that movie.
yeah.
He was, it wasn't a Bruce Wayne movie. It was a Batman movie. You know,
Yeah, agreed. No one gives a shit about the alias. It's a plot purpose, and that's it. Yeah,
that's
my
it.
main character, the whole thing with it was tough. I finally decided on a new name for the superhero, because I didn't realize how many Lightning characters there were
Oh
until I
yeah.
was coming up with names for a Lightning superhero. I'm like, because I was like, Lightning Lad taken,
Oh god,
Lightning
yeah.
Lord taken,
That's a Legion.
Living Lightning taken.
Yep.
Obviously, you have Static Shock is taken. I'm like, shit. So it's just like, I kept going. I finally decided on one, but I realized like the main character and his real name and whatever, the name is important, but it was like as long as he was the hero, you
Yes.
know, because I decided this guy wasn't gonna have really as much of an like, okay, it's hard to explain it, but like it was gonna make sure that the identity is intertwined with the hero, that
Yeah.
and that's important too. Like Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent are, I don't want to say two sides of the same coin because they really are one and the same when you boil it down. There is a persona that, but but the thing is, you got to make sure you understand the character inside and out. I think is one of the most important parts of writing. Before I even write a script, I spend, I don't even know how much time going through my characters.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get to the point, like I was doing like write ups and I was like getting into like their parents' history. I'm like, all right, that's the point where I got to be like, is this relevant? No.
But it's like when you're playing a role playing game like D&D, you have to understand the best campaigns are when you have people who actually truly understand their characters and understand the history of their characters. Because then people can play into their characters. That's fundamentally what you're doing as a creator. You're always going to know more about the characters than you reveal. You have to, but it enables you to know how they're going to react or act in certain. They're going to know what things get these guys going. So it's a necessity, I feel, as a creator, and just if you're just as a comic nerd. I mean, as those things slowly got revealed, I mean I loved that. But the problem with comics then is they started revealing too much.
Oh yeah, like
You
Wolverine.
know, yeah. I
Like,
mean, the beauty of Wolverine back in the day was you got him for about 5 pages an issue in X-Men, and he was the baddest dude ever. You didn't know his name. You just knew that you're gonna find out. You want to you want to find you'll find out. You want to find out? And
yeah,
you didn't mess with Wolverine. And the
yeah,
thing is, and Claremont, those guys, they realized that was the beauty of Wolverine. And I'll tell you one of the things that I loved. They did Claremont and Frank Miller did a 4-issue miniseries,
oh
the
yeah,
first, and I remember getting that. And the thing is, oh man, I love those. You think that, yeah, man, I want to know all this stuff about Wolverine. You know what the beauty of that book was? It was kind of that series was kind of a Shakespearean story,
oh yeah,
kind of a love story, but it still didn't tell you much of anything about Wolverine. You think you want to know all this stuff about Wolverine, but you don't.
right.
You love him as a mystery man. Just let him be Wolverine. Let him do what he does. We
Yeah,
came away from that. You learn about Mariko a little bit, but you still didn't know jack about Wolverine.
yeah.
Except for
You
the
learn
fact
more
that,
about
except for he was even more awesome. That you were like, he's even more awesome than I thought.
No, it was a thing too, and one of the things that I was surprised about, because I had seen the movies first and then a lot of the animated stuff, I was surprised by so many things about Wolverine that weren't were like so slowly unveiled. Like I was surprised. I have read over a decade's worth of, so I'm like 1990 in terms of X-Men stuff. Started with Giant
Yeah.
Size. I thought the memory loss was just a thing from the beginning. I didn't realize that there's never mentioned. It's not even an idea. It's just what's his past? We don't talk about it really. I don't
No.
know. Or even Logan. That like the first hint is he goes, Mariko's talking to him. He goes, "What's your name?" It's Lo, and then someone interrupts and he goes later. He says Logan. Or like you
Yeah.
learn little things like, oh, he just starts speaking
But
Japanese.
that was huge. We had been reading Claremont's X-Men for years before we knew this dude's name was Logan. And then
that
the
was
beauty
it.
of it, and the beauty of it was, is it really his name?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Is it-
yeah. You know he's Canadian.
Yeah.
But then you keep learning. Like even I just read. Hold on, where is it? Like the Scorpio connection. I don't know if you've read that one, but the Nick Fury, Wolverine. It's like all these stories. They'll be like, oh, here was this spy he used to know. Oh, he was friends with Nick Fury, but they would introduce these things like where it's almost like, what? You didn't know this? Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
But to me, that's when you're making Wolverine comics, you'll get, or comics with Wolverine in it, you'll get little snippets about who he really is, and then you'll keep it moving. But the problem is once you start making Logan comics, then you're trying to unravel, everything about the person. When you jump that shark, that's when you're doing things like in Star Wars, the Force becomes metachlorines. It's like, no,
yeah.
it's just the Force.
Yeah.
That's it.
I was going through that, and I had decided early on that I didn't want to reveal a lot of like powers in my world because I'm like that just sucks the fun out of it. And then it's like if I create too many rules, then you have to like chain yourself. And I think what I loved about comics is that they would just go with stuff, and it was okay if it, it was whatever. Or like the X gene, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's not as creative on the surface level as like, oh, it was a gamma bomb, right? That is more creative, but what it allowed was just a simple starting point that could launch right into the action.
Yeah.
And I think that was really
and then you can go and you can have fun. It's funny, when I was looking at the art from your book, I was thinking all these different elements. I mean, it's like you've got this you've got like, to me, my favorite form of kind of manga style, and it's just because of my Western influence. Being somebody that loves American comics first, I always loved like Sanctuary. I loved like Crying Freeman. I love that style.
I'm gonna look into like Sanctuary and Crying Freeman.
Oh, bro.
These are
You're gonna fall in love.
This is what is interesting to me too, is because people are always like, oh, anime style, and they think it's just the big eyes. But I just looked up Sanctuary, and it looks like almost like Steranko-esque.
It's amazing.
Well, let me put
It's absolutely amazing.
see some James Bond in there. Yeah, that does not, like, people think that like manga is whatever, and a lot of it, especially now, is like the big eye stuff. But that's not.
But dude,
there's
so let me
much
tell you, just like
versatility.
the interior artwork is just like that. Through and through. Through and through, the books are just like that. The artwork is just phenomenal. And the use of the grayscales, and I could see how your artist was using the grays as well.
Oh, he's so good with that.
And I was just like, man, he's getting it done. But you have some other elements too, because I like the supernatural elements that you have in your story. The thing is, like, I mean, I'm definitely backing that. I see, because I looked at the elements and I'm like, man, you've got this big World War III-ish type feel. So you've got all these different elements. It feels like, and I'm just throwing out my feel. I'm like, this feels like, mixture between what was the Justice League Kingdom Come. It kind of gives me the feel like the history gives me kind of like a Kingdom Come feeling, but I've got like the art of like a Sanctuary or a Crying Freeman, and I was like, I like all these different elements to it, because but you're going to be like, hey, this is kind of the aftermath, this is kind of the post Kingdom Come world.
Yeah, well, it was like I had come up with this idea, right? And then my friend at one point, because he didn't give a shit about superheroes, he was a manga guy, but he was like, what's your world like? And I was like, oh, it's basically just our world, but like there's some superpowers. And like you should do something different. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And then I kind of started building legacy, and I remember I started writing down literally a list of why do I love superheroes, and part of it was, just the heroes and everything. And I looked into, and I'm like, well, I'm always inspired by heroes that came before me or writers that came before me. So I'm like, let's
Yeah.
give a backstory. And then that built into World War III, and I was like, holy shit, that's genius. World War III.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so good. As I was plotting out the history of the world, I'm like, this is a story here. All right, we'll shelve that. That'll be a prequel. But, that was how it
That's
came
dope.
about. But I
That's
wanted to
dope.
show that superheroes could save us from a world war, but they could also cause a world war to begin with. And
Absolutely.
it's all about things in people's hands. See, this right here, this, if you just showed me this, I think there are certain things that are manga-esque, but I think it could fit right in with a Western comic. I mean, this looks
Yeah.
like, right here, this looks like you could see this as the only, the thing I'd say that is kind of a giveaway would be that, and this is something I think American comics, I don't know how to describe it. Like the manga decompresses more, and sometimes that leads to good stuff. It
Yeah.
does.
I think, and my thing is, in terms of styles, both styles have their, kind of have their positives. I think you can kind of get the best of both with your artist. I love black and whites as well as color. I love, color comics, of course, just Western. I love color comics, but I'll tell you, good, good black and whites, man.
Hmm.
That's good stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I agree 100%, and I think let's see. I think one of the things that I like about manga is I will say I do wish I could see because for example in the Battle Angel Alita, which is some of the first manga I read, you could see the like some colored stuff, and I'm like, wow, that actually looks really pretty. But on the flip
Yeah.
side, sometimes black and white stuff just looks really good, and
Yeah.
I really think I want this my superhero. Someone suggested it be black and white because black and white art is so good, but I was like, no, because the bright colors really do matter to me.
Yeah.
But I could see myself doing a black and white book, like especially noir,
Yeah.
something in that.
And it's a good problem to have. I mean, I've felt the same way with my books. It's like, man, the lines are so good. Sometimes I just want to do it black and white, but it's that Western sensibility in me. I want to see them in color. But who knows? It gives you the option at some point in the future. Maybe if you want to reveal or provide a black and white version, you can. You know, I mean, and there've been like I picked up this. My buddy got me this old Power Man compendium. It was like all the old Power Man books. So it was like, but they were all like black and white, like on newspaper, kind of stock, and it was great.
That's awesome.
Even though the book was originally in color, I was like, this is great.
That's awesome, man. I gotta read more of Power Man and Iron Fist. It seems like a series that I'd like a lot. But I do want
Power,
to jump in. Oh,
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry. Oh man, I tell you, man, I can talk about comics all day. There's
That's
Power Man
awesome.
and
I'm
Iron
gonna have
Fist.
you to talk about that. I read the one issue where it's because it was related to X Men. It was like the X Men join up,
Mhm.
where Power Man and Iron Fist. It's like they have to fight. What is it? Living Monolith or no? Living Pharaoh or
Mhm.
is that what it is? Living Pharaoh? Havoc's arch enemy. I want to say it's Living Pharaoh. Marvel. I think. Is that it? No, it was Living Monolith. All right, I was right. Living Monolith. Yeah, that was the where they have to fight him. Trevor Von Eden did that one. I actually talked to him about it. But
Nice.
yeah, that was really cool. Trevor Von Eden's a really nice guy.
That's
But yeah,
dope.
that was really cool. But I do want to pull up. Yeah, I'd love to go through. I'm gonna start a show called Comic Strip Club, actually, where we're gonna
Oh
go
man.
through comics. And like, I'd love to if you had any Power Man or Iron Fist, even just talking to you now about comics. Like, it's been what, like 30 minutes
I
on the
know.
book, and that's great. And it went by like that because I love talking about this stuff, and I
Dude,
think
just tap me on the shoulder, man. I'll be there. I've
awesome.
so many different books that I would love to talk about.
All right. Well, Wolverine stuff is for sure. We got to talk
Woo!
about.
Yeah.
Definitely some Wolverine stuff. I'd love to talk about
They
that.
did a set of those miniseries. The Falcon one was awesome.
I never read
The-
that. That was Christopher Priest, right?
yes.
He wrote, by
So
the way, one of the best, most underrated Spider-Man Wolverine stories. It was the Spider-Man vs. Wolverine, right? That story, you've read that, right?
no.
Holy shit! You have to. You would, because you would love it. It's like a sleeper hit because it's not really. Well, apparently it's more important to Spider-Man, but it was one of those stories where is Wolverine done right, where it reveals some stuff about his past, like a past love interest and all this stuff through the action in the story, and it's like super dark. But yeah, Spider-Man vs. Wolverine. It's like I want to say it was like 60 something pages. It was a one shot by
Really?
Christopher
How did I
Priest.
miss that?
Well, because he was back then. I don't know, but it was the 80s. It was during Claremont's run. Phenomenal. Let me see if I could find it. But it's one of the more. Hold on, and then I'll get to your. I want to pull this up real quick. Wolverine. It is so good. Where is it? Yeah, I think. Are there two covers to this? No. Right here. The cover is them fighting in a graveyard. Christopher, because he used to be James Owsley. I didn't realize it was because I was reading it and I was like, who is this writer? I've never heard of this guy. This
Yeah.
guy's phenomenal. And then I looked up James Owsley and it's like, no, he's now goes by Christopher Priest. So he changed his name, I guess.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, this is when he was James Owsley and he was a Spider-Man editor, and he just gets
Yeah,
to take these
because
characters.
that's how he wrote. That's why people may be confused. You may look up the Falcon and say like, it doesn't say Christopher Priest. It says Jim Owsley. No, that's Christopher Priest.
Yeah. So the Falcon one, I will add that to my reading list. Yeah, Christopher Priest stuff is. I mean, I heard his Black Panther is like the best His Black Panther run is like.
I actually haven't read it. I mean, I want to check it out. It's funny, but like, Black Panther was never really a character that really intrigued me that much, honestly. So I never really read Black Panther, but I heard it's a really good run. So I'm probably going to go back and check it out.
I got introduced to him through the Avengers show, and he was one of my favorite characters in that show. Just because I think the idea of like a nation running on vibranium that's secret
Yeah,
is so, and also almost like a ninja who's also he's almost like Aquaman meets Batman meets
yeah.
Captain America. So I don't know. I think he's such an original character. Like I think there's
What you should do, you need to read his first issue. I read a reprint of it in the Fantastic Four. Because dude was really a villain to start. He was
What?
like a Black Doctor Doom. Like in that first issue, not as evil as Doctor Doom, but like he was the antagonist in Fantastic Four in the Fantastic Four issue.
I think,
And then they converted him.
is this it? This is it, right? 52.
I don't know if that's the first one.
Or is it?
But yeah.
No, that's his own series. Dude, I mean, I gotta read that whole Fantastic Four run. I mean, there's so many classics I want, and that's one of the things I do. I know come from a weird. I don't know. I don't think it's just my generation. I think I do specifically seek out older stuff more.
Yeah.
But I always like to seek out a lot of the older stuff because I think it's important, and also because I want to read it. It looks interesting to me.
Yeah. And I think there's so many. I mean, along with just learning cool things, there's a lot of great history. You know, if you read John Byrne's run on the Fantastic Four, I have that in graphic novels. I mean, so much of it is an ode to the original run of the Fantastic
so I
Four.
should read original and then Byrne because I know those are the two. Those two and Hickman's run I know are the ones I need to read.
Exactly.
All right. So I'll make note of that. I've read the one issue where that was essential where they bring Jean Grey back.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
I think was personally a bad decision. I think she should have stayed. I love Jean, but it was so clear that they had no idea what the hell to do with her when she was back.
But the problem was, so I mean, Marvel, they were doing some things that were pretty bold. So I mean, they had created um, the man. What was the name of the New Mutants? They created the New Mutants,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember that because me and my friends were like, man, this is going to be our generation of X-Men, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's like they had already set the stage for, okay, basically the X-Men are gonna at some point ride off to the sunset, and the New Mutants are gonna be the new X-Men. But then they hit some kind of critical point where they decided, you know what, we're just gonna keep what we have, and we're just gonna keep rebooting them. So they tried to reboot it through X Factor, so they brought back Jean Grey,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically just kind of repurposed the original X-Men through X Factor, while
Yeah.
the X-Men still had their own, the
Yeah.
Uncanny X-Men still had their own team. So it becomes overcrowded and overpopulated. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like trying to tell generational stories, but there's no passing from one generation to the next. You
Yeah,
just
they kind
have
of just
you
stay
just have
there.
20 generations of stuff all in the same epoch.
Yeah, that's
And
why
it
I
doesn't
made
work.
superheroes. That's why in my story I made sure to have this is the new generation, the old generation is in the past. We can go to the past and they're still alive in the present,
Yeah.
but it is clear there is a passing of the torch, and who knows, maybe I'll pass it again in real time. We'll
Yeah.
see. But one thing I'm not gonna do is, I don't want to reboot a million times, or even one time. Like a soft,
Yeah.
like Claremont did soft. I don't even know if I call them reboots, but he would like kind of shift things up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I always thought that X Factor was the weakest of those three: X Men, New
Absolutely.
Mutants, and X Factor. I thought, and I've read 50 something issues of it. I think there's some solid ones, but I think it is easily weaker than New Mutants and X Men.
Yeah, it was, and the thing was like, it was just, it just wasn't the same. I mean, it's like, they're trying to respark this whole thing between Scott and Jean, but Scott has got a kid with Madeline Pryor. I mean, it's just, it became too much. It became too much like a soap opera as opposed to a comic. You know what I
He
mean?
spends 8 issues like hiding the fact that he has a wife and kid, and I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Did
come on,
Cyclops
man.
do that?
You're like
I
you're
feel
like
like,
this dude is supposed to be the leader, and that's what he's doing.
and I feel like that's why, because I was even talking to some people the other day. I think it was it was yesterday about how like Cyclops is actually a good character that was fucked over by editorial and stuff like and bad writing. Because I'm like, there's no way. I was reading it and I was like, he wouldn't do this. He wouldn't.
Yeah,
No, he wouldn't. And he also, especially if he did, he would be like, I have a wife and I have a kid.
yeah.
Let's be up front. So even if he messed up, he would still. I don't buy the fact that he would just be like, oh, I don't want to hurt her feelings. I can't let her know. No, Cyclops was the kind of guy that would just say shit that you're like, dude, why would you say that?
And the worst part
because
is
it's true.
he wasn't even doing it for her. He's doing it for himself. He's just too much of a punk.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he didn't really want to lose her, but he's already got a wife and kid. And I'm just like, you know what? Nobody wants any of this stuff in their comics.
No. No.
I want to see him
people-
lead the X Factor, and I want to see him jack somebody with some eye beams. That's what I want to see.
Oh yeah. And I like that you called them that, and not because they're not lasers. That's a very important distinction.
They're eye beams.
They're optic blasts, I beams, whatever you want to call them. It's a concussive force. They are not lasers. They're not heat related. But this, I want to talk about. This is also something we want to see in comics. First of all, I was on stream with Rini watching her draw this cover, and I was like, "What is this? I hadn't seen this before."
Yes.
The colors look great too. I love seeing things come together. That's one of the things as a creator I do
Yeah.
like is watching script, thumbnails, concept art, all the way down to this right here, and then a
Absolutely.
printed book is. I mean, that part I haven't gotten to. Although, well, I've gotten to it as an editor. But I mean, it's just really cool seeing this
Yeah.
come to life. And man, this is great. This colorist is so good. It's like the colors pop, but they don't like overstate or
Overwhelm.
overshadow. I think a lot of colorists make that mistake, and this too. Like it
Yeah.
just kind of highlights, but it doesn't
I
overshadow
mean,
anything.
literally, like the rim lighting on that picture helps make that picture. But it's just like it's the small understated things, So it's like, most colorists are doing 85, 90% of what Vinicius is doing here, but it's the small parts that, you look at it, you're just like, man, this picture really pops. This is so cool. And, there's so much talent in our community. This colorist, his name is Vinicius Townsend. I've been working with him for a number of years. He is colorist on Magna, which is another property of mine, along with the prior volume of Black Tiger. And one of the things, having somebody as dynamic of a line artist as Rod, and you're going through, if you haven't yet, you have phenomenal line art. Now if you don't already, you got to get a phenomenal colorist, or else they'll take away from the line art.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
what I'm working with.
And then you're going to have phenomenal line art and colors. Then you need to get a letterer that doesn't take away from what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm working. That part is because I'm like, yes, I got this. I've been looking at some colors. By the way, it's Artesita is this color.
Artesita 1, he's amazing.
Did he do this cover?
He did the purple one right there. Yep. Oh. That dragon one, and he did the one up top. And he is.
His
and the
style
thing is,
looks different. Did he do this too or no?
So, because Rod did so Vinicius Townsend did that.
Oh, okay.
So with Artesita 1, you need to look him up because his colors are absolutely amazing. But he's an amazing line artist too. He's a complete package. That dude can do it all. He's phenomenal.
Rod Looper is the artist, right?
Yes.
His art is fun. I've never read any of his, and I definitely am excited for this. Hold on, I want to. Vinicius Townsend. Is he on socials? Is he?
Yeah, just Vinicius Townsend. Just his full name. He's a great dude. Great dude. Amazing colorist. And I mean, this team is such an A team. Marco's letters are just amazing. And just having, because every level of your production has to be top notch.
I agree. Yeah.
You can have great line art and colors, and if you have bad letters, it's going to annoy people. It'll take people right out of the story.
I agree. I totally agree. There we go.
And I need to update that bar chart because the production's further along.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea of having a production bar chart. So, let's see. Should we watch the trailer first and then dive into what it's about?
Welcome, Beyond Time Travelers. We're excited to bring you the final 88-page chapter in the Black Tiger Hidden Dragon story arc, where the rubber meets the road as Assistant Defense Attorney Jen Fong must balance her career and personal life with her blossoming power and responsibilities as Black Tiger. Jen must survive an insidious game of death and a lethal encounter with the Metahuman Activities Division of the Los Santos Police Department as the city streets run ablaze with criminal activity. Along with pulse-pounding action, this graphic novel reveals inconceivable truths about the Black Tiger power, ranging from ancient Mayan civilization to feudal Japan. Picking up where Volume 1 left off, Jen must go farther, dig deeper, and bring it with more bone-crushing kung fu than ever before in order to save the city of Los Santos and restore the disgraced names of both the Fong family and the Black Tiger. For those of you who are new to Black Tiger, this campaign is a great jumping-on point, as it contains nearly 350 pages of comic book awesomeness with 2 complete 6-issue Black Tiger story arcs, Legacy of Fury and Hidden Dragon. Start at the beginning with the 172-page epic Black Tiger Legacy of Fury, in which Pak Fong, the prior Black Tiger, has a strained relationship with his children. His daughter Jen is a straight as an arrow assistant DA, whom Pak has inadvertently lost in the shuffle as he focuses his attention on his prodigal son Eric. Unbeknownst to Jen, Eric is the heir to the Black Tiger power, and an enforcer in the Red Dragon Triad, the most brutal gang in Chinatown. When an assassin's bullet ends Pac's life and grants the power to Eric, the family is shattered. Pac's web of secrets drives brother and sister onto separate journeys that collide as the fate of the city and the mantle of the Black Tiger hangs in the balance. All production is 100% complete as we continue our mission to bring you the very best in comic book entertainment. Join us for boundless imagination.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome, man. That looks great. That looks so good.
Man.
So, yeah, I mean,
I'm excited. I'm excited to get this into people's hands.
I'm excited to read it. I can't believe I've never heard of this before. Have you been crowdfunding since the beginning, or how did you?
So the first time I crowdfunded was that in 2019? So basically, a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, you heard of this group called CG? You need to get involved with that." Then another buddy of mine's like, "Hey, you need to stay away from them." Blah blah blah. And I was just like, well, kind of what's this about? So I was just trying to figure some things out. I ended up getting in contact with John Malin. He had me on his show. I had a Kickstarter at the time, and he just kind of schooled me. He's like, listen, he's like, there may be a lot of folks from this community that don't back you right now because you're on Kickstarter, because I didn't really know what was up. He's like, but let's go through your campaign. He kind of schooled me on how to make the campaign look better. Was able to make that Kickstarter goal, but then I went and relaunched on Indiegogo, and that's when I just started rolling, man.
That's awesome.
So, the challenge is that, and you and I are talking about it just backstage, there's so many awesome books. There's so much stuff out there, and it's like so much stuff falls in between the cracks, and I don't have an answer for that. There's some people that I've just recently, like yourself, other people like Vaughn and stuff. I mean, it's like I've just gotten into contact with these guys like within the last month, and it's what do you do? I mean, it's like you bump into people or you don't, right? It's like at the point when you do bump into people, you're like, oh, that's cool, but you just trying to be a part of the community, just trying to be visible, and just trying to continue to make cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really cool. I mean, I always like just talking to people about like comics and everything, and I like everyone I've met so far through these live streams, and it's been great. I mean, I'm having so much fun with this, and this book, again, I never would have heard of it, and I'm so glad I do. And I'm learning about so many hidden gems. $25 for the whole volume is a great deal too, right? It's 25.
Yeah, it's $25. It's 88 page. Each volume is 88 page, and then if you get Legacy of Fury, that's 172 pages. So it's $35, but you're getting 172 pages. That is so really, you're getting good bang for your buck.
Oh my god, yeah. And then you have all three, where it's. So
that one is, some folks wanted all three covers for volume 2. So I probably should have named that better. Okay. The best way to get everything is really the savings are by doing it a la carte, because I was really able to save people on the shipping. So it's like if you go into one, let's say you go into volume 2, and then you can add volume 1 of Hidden Dragon, then you can add Legacy of Fury. You'll save a lot of money on the shipping that way. And then what you're showing are there are pencil pages from Rod's originals, and then further down are some ink pages. So if you're somebody that loves original art, he's gonna let this stay on the campaign while it's live, and then once it goes into demand, he's gonna pull all those down, because he makes a lot of money those like at auction.
I believe
because people bid against each other for those. So, he will sell those pages.
That's wow. This looks so good. So what inspired this idea and this character?
Man, so many different elements. I mean, I'm, along with being a big lover of comics, I'm a big lover of kind of the old Hong Kong style movies like Shaw Brothers. So I always loved martial arts. I always loved Kung Fu. I always love the elements in superhero stories. I mean, you have the metahumans, you've got the superpowers. So that's the beauty of comics. You know, you can take all the elements that you like and you can put it into one bowl and mix it up and make something that's super dope. And I feel like other media can't do that. They don't, whether it's because of their budgets or because of the way they, their people, the editors, work in those worlds. Oh, what is this? Is this all, is this, suspense? Is this, martial arts? Is this, you can in comics, you can put all of the elements that you want into one awesome story and deliver it in a way where people are having a good time and they want to come back for more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just screams passion project, and this screams like pure comic book. Like you have this girl who's a martial artist. There's things that you think of where you're like, yeah, that's straight out of a comic book, and that's this. Yeah. It's whether it gets made live action or not is irrelevant. And would it look this good? I don't.
Some things don't translate, and that to me that's the big challenge. When folks make comics for the sake of making other media, then you're trying to make things that will translate. You're not going to have the cool costumes. You're probably not going to have all the cool action. Some of those scenes, it's like, how do you pull that off? It's like that's that cool car chase scene where the one where Onryu, she throws the spear and hits the propeller of the helmet right there. It's hard to see because it's actually a double page spread going across, and she throws her spear and hits the base of the the helicopter. I mean, it's like, you can do that in a comic all day.
Oh, yeah.
You do that in a TV show and a movie, probably doesn't translate well.
There's so much you can do. That's one of the things, because I came from screenwriting, that I'm learning about comics. And it's so, one of the reasons I kind of have been gravitating towards comics is because of you. I always have these big budget ideas that I have to almost keep weathering down.
Yes.
And I'm like, I just want to do them, man. I have all this energy. And I just have to sit on these scripts forever and hope that I can be, selected or whatever. And I'm like, no, I could just get this out here, get these stories just out of me, and it's so.
And you can do it, and you can do it to the full extent of your creativity. Mm-hmm. You're not like, oh well, let me, this is only going to be a $20 million budget movie, so I better. Take out this and take out that and remove these characters. And, we better go sit down in the coffee shop and go talk for a while. Keep the budget low.
Yeah.
Like
cut locations, cut extras, none of that.
I mean, here you see, you went through pages from a Mayan ziggurat to feudal Japan. That's the beauty of comics. You travel. You travel through time. You travel time and space in comics at the drop of a hat.
And I love that, man. I think it's so cool. I think it's so damn cool. I'm excited for that, dude.
And one of the reasons, the name Beyond Time is, being able to tell stories that are happening currently, being able to tell things that happened in the past, and like yourself. I think we've all learned some big lessons. And
I'm gonna learn more. I'm sure of that.
Oh, believe you me, we all are. We've all learned some big lessons from the big two. And it's like, listen, don't constrain yourself too much, but whatever you make is canon. It's like, so it's like once you start unraveling the things that you make, that's when you lose people. Mm-hmm. I haven't read those guys in a while. With the New 52 unraveled so many things that I loved.
That was when I started reading comics, and what's the point?
I was leaving at that point because I was just like, so many stories that I loved. I was just like, okay, you got all this stuff going on with Batman. I was like, so is the Killing Joke still part of this? Is this still part? And then I was just like, listen, I care more. If I care more about it than the people creating it, then I need to put my money somewhere else.
That's how I felt is when the New 52 was coming out. I was finally ready to start reading the comics, and I would read Batman Hush and all the stuff that inspired the media, like the animated series, the Arkham games. And I was like, what? They're just throwing that out?
Yeah.
What, to bring in new readers? Well, like maybe I'll try some of it. And like Aquaman and stuff was good, but I didn't stick around for long. I would go back to the old stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I also love about this whole renaissance that's going on. I mean, there's so many people that are making heartfelt comics. I mean, they're making the comics that they want to read. And that's the thing that comic book writers and artists did back in the day. You could tell they were telling stories that they wanted to read. I'm like, why should I spend my money on somebody that's telling a story they don't even want to read? They're just using it as a stepping stone to get that TV deal or to get that movie deal. And then they come back and they act like comics suck. Like if comics suck so much, then just don't make them. Just don't make them.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's so many issues and I think that's another thing too. I remember writing a draft, and it was one of I've rewritten my script so many times because it was like, it needs to be perfect, and I'm glad I did. But it was like one of those things where I was writing at 1.1. You sometimes just got to do those like angry writes or those whatever you're feeling. And I go back and I'm like, my second grade self would not like this. This is not what I want to make.
Right.
So you go back to like, okay, this is too cynical. Let's go back to the optimism, or whatever it is you want to feel. If you feel like that, even if you feel like you technically hit all the plot stuff you want, you got to make sure you have the feel too. And there's so much energy in these pages, which is not only are they pretty, because there can be pretty pages where like nothing happens. And what I like about it is also she's very expressive. There's some artists that just like, you got to make sure faces to me is a very big thing with artists.
Absolutely.
Making sure they're A, good looking, B, expressive.
Exactly. And we know that, that communication, especially face-to-face communication, 70% of it is nonverbal. So it's like you got to have an artist that can help you with all the nonverbal stuff, and then trust the reader to pick up on these things, because it's a left brain, right brain exercise when you read comics. Yeah, you're reading the words, but you've got to really be inspecting and studying the art. You don't want to dumb it down. You want to go ahead and challenge the readers to pick up on these things. And that's when you read things more than one time. You're like, oh man,
I like that. If I feel like I read something and I never want to think about it again or read it again, that's a problem.
Yeah, that means you didn't do your job, right? Somebody didn't do their job.
How many times, and this is why I think physical, don't get me wrong, I can look up stuff, and often I do, because I'm like, which issue number was this? But always there's that just being able to get it off the shelf, and man, you just kind of, when I'm writing, or if I just feel like, what was that like?
Yeah,
that's it.
There it is. Yeah. Exactly. And I feel like this whole kind of comic renaissance that's happening now is bringing that back to the table. And now there's so much great content, so many great, stories that are being told, and I think we're just all kind of trying to figure out how we get our hands on all the stuff that we all want to get.
Absolutely. I mean, I have so many ideas where like I have other comics I want to do where it was like, okay, like for example, I had my first published work, which is 10-pager, but I want to make it a full story, where I came with it was like, all right, what's everything that I want to see in a comic right now? Okay, a hot chick who kicks ass, there's guns and shit. Okay, cool. Let's meld those together. All right, here's my character. Here's my story. Like that kind of stuff, And I could definitely tell you have martial arts. You have you have metahumans, dragons, like all kinds of shit. It looks to me like you just kind of melded everything you wanted until you had like an essence and a story.
Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's creating the world. So I mean, just the only rules that Rod and I really set is that if we put it into print, it's now canon.
That's a good one. Yeah,
that's
I'm gonna
it.
Do that too.
That's the rule. So it's like if we do something, it doesn't get undone. And then beyond that, we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to create, and we're continuing to expand the world. All these different. There's Black Tiger, there's Magna, there's the Posse. They all take place in the same world. So what we are doing, in fact, is we're building out a world. And just like we were talking about with Wolverine before, it's like all these different things were revealed in different stories at just like almost innocuous times. Like you said, oh, it was this Nick Fury and Wolverine story. It was this Wolverine miniseries that you learned this element, because at the end of the day, you can pick up on these other elements about Logan, but nobody's picking up Logan comics. It's cool stuff for us comic book nerds to know.
Yeah.
People are picking up Wolverine comics. Nobody wants a Logan comic. You know, and that's my same premise here. It's like I want to keep the action moving.
Yeah, or even like I mean, this classic issue, right? It's just the whole thing is a flashback where he's back at a bar, thinking about the past.
Yeah,
That's it.
It's
written that way.
It's just being able to go back into the past, reveal something cool, and I'm actually going to be doing more stories that are in the past as a reveal, because that's one of the things. Like Pete Samedi does a great job of that with King Cryptid. You know, he tells complete stories each issue, so you can jump on at any point, but they're in different time periods.
Oh,
So you could jump on at any point. And then you but in the process, not because you're being preached to, but just by seeing what's going on, you learn more about the character. To me, that's the best way to do it. I talked about a series back in the day called Stray Bullets. It wasn't a superhero series. It's by Dave Lapham. It's actually like I just call it a story of human tragedy almost. It's just people making really bad decisions and the consequences of those decisions. But the way he did each issue was a story, a complete story in and of itself, with a particular set of characters. And you started realizing, like, oh man, this is, these are some crazy individual stories, but it's actually creating a tapestry. You start putting it together, like, hey, that's the same character from here, but this one happened in 1975, this one happened in 1980. And then you start realizing that, man, there's a bigger picture here. And what you're being revealed, you're learning more about all the characters, but without somebody saying like, hey, the Force is made out of metachlorines. You're just reading it and you're experiencing the story. And if you miss a part, you may miss a part of the bigger tapestry, but you can still read that story.
Read that, yeah. Absolutely.
And enjoy that.
And if anything, it might make you want to go, because if you're like, oh, I have to read this, or you could go, wait a minute, let me go back. Like, for example, I initially missed that Wolverine Nick Fury story, and then I was just reading Uncanny X-Men, and they go, he's having flashbacks of Nick Fury, and I'm like, you know what? I do kind of want to know, how does he know Nick Fury? And even in that story, they don't really explain it, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, it doesn't matter. It was still a good story.
Even that flashback, so it's like, it made you interested to pick up the book, but you could read it without seeing that. So it wasn't like, oh, well, you haven't picked that up. Now you're in a hole. And that's one of the problems, the challenges with the way the big two are writing some of these stories. Like when I was picking up comics as a kid, I told you, I think I picked up Avengers 183 or 182. That's where I started. But you know what? I was able to pick up there and just go. And then I became interested, and then I started going into bargain bins and picking up old issues. But that was because I wanted to pick them up. It wasn't because the issues left me in a way that I was like, man, I can't even understand what's going on. They give you a jumping on point.
Absolutely. 183, you said? You said it had
I think it was 183. Let me look it up. It's a giant Crusher Creel on, and he's holding Miss Marvel like he's he's King Kong.
No, I know.
Or is it 184?
184. Yeah, I have this one.
184. Yeah.
That was a burn cover?
That was a burn. Burn did the interior. I don't know.
Yeah, the cover was Perez did the cover, and I know Klaus Janson was somehow involved in this one, because I had got Rubenstein and Klaus Janson to sign this. I'm not sure.
But I knew nothing about John Byrne or about George Perez.
Yeah.
But this segment of the run of the Avengers, the artists were George Perez and John Byrne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, beat that with a bat.
Yeah, no, you can't. You cannot. That is the dream team. That's an issue I definitely want to check out. Then I own it, but I just haven't read it yet. It was like a hand me down.
It's fun. I think Dave Michelini is the guy that wrote it. It's a fun story, and I think that is Miss Marvel's introduction into the Avengers.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, like when you read that, you realize why people really like Miss Marvel back in the day.
The
You
costume
know,
too is
and then and it
just
also
the best
makes you
costume.
realize why people are just like not happy with what they've done with Carol Danvers.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people aren't. The character design here is also great. I really like. I like Black Tiger's design.
Man,
There's,
one of the things that we had fun with Black Tiger, she has different variants of her suit,
oh yeah,
but like she's got like the skirt, she's got like the kind of the
oh I
tight
see
long
it.
pants. She's got a full cat suit version. She's got a dress version. That's the cool cat. That's the kind of the cat suit version. And the cat suit version, it kind of has a little bit of that disco Nightwing feel to it with the big collar, just because
Oh
I,
yeah,
I love the disco Nightwing suit. So like our whole premise is this: is like she, as a woman, she's not going to wear the same costume every time, but she's fire. So whatever she's going to wear is going to be dope. It's going to be
yeah,
hot. So just simple premise, but I was just like, those are the rules. Those she's not going to wear some frumpy costume. She's never going to do that.
yeah. You
You
gotta
know,
make it if you're gonna do comics and people are like, oh, it should be realistic. No, it should
no,
not. People no. People, if you want to wear the costume and bring it in live action, that's you have to bring on the ordeal. But no, it shouldn't be. It should be something an artist came up with, not something an artist had to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like because I even for example, I was wearing the Cloud costume, Final Fantasy VII. And I'm noticing things. I'm like, why are there bolts here? That's
yeah,
I'm like, who cares? Do they look cool?
looks
Because
looks
everyone's
cool.
like, oh, it looks cool. No one's like, what's the practical? Because I would as a writer kind of do that. I'm like, well, what? Why is that there in the design? It's like I don't. The artist would be like, oh, it just looks cool. I'm like,
Because it's
yeah, it
dope.
does look
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
It
you're
does look
right.
cool. Yeah.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's also we have to remember the medium is escapism,
Oh yeah.
and when we lose track of that, when people are saying like, "Oh, it's so unrealistic," "Oh, how could Clark Kent be fooling people with Superman?" Oh, I'm like, no, you've lost the whole premise of why you're even reading the story. If you're reading the story and that's what you're worried about, go read something else. Just go do something else.
100%. 100%. Where sometimes people are like asking questions where I'm like, are you even a fan? Like that
Yeah,
you or like
it's
it's like no, that's not what it is. People often miss the core, but it sounds like I mean this. You also go. This is all from the same book, right?
yes. So this now you've gone into volume one.
Oh,
So
we're here. This is volume one.
yep.
Okay. All right. I was gonna say because she travels. I was like, wow, she travels a lot in 72 pages.
Well, she does. She
There's so
travels a
much that
ton.
happens, like action wise, on each
She
page too.
travels a ton, and that was my whole intention. I'd been reading some of like um, the old Stan Lee and Jack Kirby Fantastic Four. Those books are crazy, man. Like in one issue, it's like okay, they're in the negative zone, they're in space, they're underground, and that's one issue. And you're just like, dang. It's like let's travel. Let's make these stories really move. Let's have a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And learn about the characters, kind of through the trials that they go through, instead of let's sit at the coffee shop with Reed Richards and let's talk to him about his inventions. No, you learn about his inventions because he's using it on somebody.
Yeah, and that was
you
something
know,
I had to work through is because I was like, is condensing. Sometimes it is good to decompress. Like, so I've written the first 8 issues of Living Legends, and then I combined the first, or it was 11. I combined the first 3 into issue 1. But I was like, I was like, there were cutting scenes that I just didn't think I needed,
yeah,
and but sometimes it is good to let things breathe, but you got to make sure that okay, I was like almost like a mission statement with this issue. Like we got to cover this, and this.
yeah.
Okay, this, and it's there's something really special about all that.
And the beauty of writing is that you're constantly rewriting and editing. So I mean, until the book is going into print, I mean, you're almost still always touching the book, because whether it's, you know, what the penciler has done with what you've written, or even sometimes you add different layers, the colors, or how it's lettered. You're continually modifying and editing and writing and rewriting and honing. So that is the process. So yeah, I mean, the scripts are written, but until the books are lettered in their final format, they're still works in progress.
Absolutely.
Because some of the stuff you have to see it. Then once you see the letters, you're like, nope, need to make some modifications here and there.
Yeah, you got to make sure it like feels. And sometimes it takes like the first 2 passes, and then the third one, you're like, wait a minute. That's why editors exist too, and why they should. Is you need a second.
Editors are important. Editors are important, and you want to have your editors in early and often.
Yeah, I agree. And I've officially hired one fairly recently, but I've been sending my script off to so many people. It's like I might as well have. But or like always getting feedback. But now that I have like a right hand man, it's really good.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I'm glad I finally hired that guy. But
I think that's been kind of the next step for a lot of us indie creators. It's like you gotta get that editor that comes in and gives you some of the tough love, and but also stays in their lane as an editor. I mean, there's a difference between editing and fan fiction.
Right.
Fan fiction is when people come in and they want to rewrite your stuff. It's like, okay, you just want to. Yeah. That's not editing.
That's trying to take control of the ship. No, yeah, I have that when it's like you're for hire, you have to have this understanding that it's not your story, right?
Yeah.
Unless I become an editor and I'm hiring someone to write, then that's different. But when I'm just basically, my goal when I'm hired to edit something, I'm like, all right, well, how can I help further your vision?
Exactly. How can we make the most out of the vision that you have for this property? That's Absolutely. What a good editor does.
And how many backers? 82 backers. This deserves more, though. I
appreciate that.
It totally does, dude. Like, and I'm gonna be one of them for sure, because this book, it looks kick-ass, dude. It looks so good. I'm excited to get this book.
That's awesome.
Well, not this book. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get the whole series, 100%.
Oh, cool. You'll enjoy it.
I know. Yeah. No, I could tell already. I'm already loving what I'm seeing. 350 pages. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. It's a no-brainer. 350 pages. That's great. It's a great deal.
So, man, I appreciate that.
No, of course. And I appreciate you coming on. This has been so fun. I know we talked once on Popix. Well, it was like I barely got to, because I didn't realize until the stream started when I was on the Popix with you. I had the loudest hotel room. I swear to God. Every time I'm about to open my mouth and say something, police sirens or like the air conditioning would just turn on for literally no reason.
Yeah, and it's like blaring. Yeah, it's like.
And I was like, because I was like, you were talking about your book. I'm like, that looks great. Nope, mute. Gotta mute myself.
Yeah.
But so I'm glad I finally got to. And I could see why you're a fan of characters like Wolverine and whatever. I am curious, by the way, who were your biggest inspirations in terms of characters for her?
So, she definitely has some Hong Kong influence to her. She definitely has, just from a fighting style kind of perspective, she has like some of the. There was a series that they did with Cassandra Cain. So they have, but they have. That was definitely kind of inspirational. I definitely inspired by some of the kind of more martial artsy type heroes, because I love the flow of the fights in the books. So there's a lot. You have to pay homage to so many different folks. It's like, I think when Jim Lee did the X-Men and his version of Psylocke, I think that was just like like an eye opener for everybody.
Oh, that was so good.
You know, that was just like, you know, what?
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah.
You know.
That was a great reintroduction. I do think the hooded look is very cool, but the characters, in my opinion, was not very interesting.
No.
Before.
No.
I really don't. I don't think she was like easily my least favorite member of.
No one cared
team.
about Petsy.
And
you know, before that reimagining.
I like the one suit she had right before. Obviously not as much, but I like the hooded suit that Silvestri came up with. The armor was a really cool suit. But Jim Lee, I mean, man, that transformation saved the character and made her into the icon she is. Without
Absolutely.
that, you know, nothing at all. You know, it just wouldn't have been the same. This is, I mean, yeah, I can't wait for this. You said it's mostly done, so like, when would it be shipping out? Do you think? Like, when would the campaign wrap up? And all
So I think our intention is to get the books out in January of 2024. We definitely want to do it after the holidays because holidays are crazy. It's more expensive to ship and stuff gets lost and it's just nutty.
You got it.
You know, so want to get it to folks definitely in Q1 of 2024 because we're so far down the road already with production. Printing, don't get me wrong, printing is a job in and of itself. I've had books done before and then still printing ended up taking, after getting it printing and shipped, it still took like a couple of months, to get the books out. So it can happen. But the good thing is we're already where we need to be from a production standpoint. So folks don't have to worry about, am I going to get these books? No, the production has happened. You're going to get the books.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to getting it because this is such a cool. I mean, it's just there's so much, and you show up a lot of pages here from previous, from whatever. It's just everything about it, and really getting to talk to you as a writer, and just the fact that we could just gush about this stuff. I mean, I'm 100% going to have you on again. This has been a blast. It's been a really fun interview. And the book I know is going to be great because, if you could talk about enthusiastically, what makes something work. Because I spend so much time almost, and I'm sure you probably do too, like these conversations almost like with yourself where you're like, yeah, here's why this works. Here's why this works. And it's almost like reaffirming why you love what you love.
Absolutely.
By the way,
you got to have a fire for it.
Bobby said Rini crushed that cover. Yeah, I watched it in real time. Yeah, draw streams are kind of... Here's the thing. As long as you... That approach is like if you're drawing a cover, that's another thing with an artist. It's just... You can't do a writing stream because it's just going to be me in a manic state, pacing, all that. But you could do a draw stream, or even just, those are great. Writing streams are a no, which is why an artists inherently have an advantage when it comes to streaming that they deserve, by the way. I'm not bitching.
Yes, absolutely.
They deserve it. But man, this is...
Well, and the funny thing is, you see things that inspire you. There was an old Thor comic, excited to collect Thor as well. And it was a great comic because it was this one where basically, Hercules, he tells all these big tales, and this crowd is around him, and Hercules is telling a tale how he just whooped Thor's behind. Because he's, Hercules doesn't realize that the kid he's talking to is actually a Thor fan. So he tells this whole tale about how he just beat Thor's butt all over New York City. And then finally he realizes, it's revealed to him that this kid actually loves Thor. So then at the end, he kind of redeems the story and he says then kind of Thor finally just said enough is enough. And he had this scene where he was holding his hand like this image. And the next thing you see is Hercules. He's getting knocked all the way out of the state of New York, going to New Jersey. And that image, I love that image. And when Rini and I were talking, wanted to do, and I saw Bobby's message, we wanted to do something simplistic, but something that was very reflective of what was happening in the last third of the book. So it's like you've got the ziggurats, which you get visited, and on one side, and you have the the castle from feudal Japan on the other side, and she's just got that pose of just like, you know what, I'm gonna knock you out. You know, she's looking just dead at you and just like, you know, it's Black Tiger time. I am gonna knock you out, and it's simple, but it's very reflective also of her as she's coming into her own as a Black Tiger, and all these things. Because basically in this story, as you're learning things, she's learning things. So her reveals are your reveals as a reader. So she's learning more about the power, and she's coming more into her own. So, you know, long story short, amazing job by Rini. She's an absolute pleasure to work with, you know, and she's an amazing artist.
Yeah, I can't wait to, because I'm gonna have her do a cover for me, and especially when I saw what I was like, holy shit! Every cover, and I'm not a huge variant cover guy for the record.
Yeah.
But every time I see one of these covers, you know, it's like impactful, and I like when artists can do storytelling. Like it's not just a pinup. Like you easily with a character like this could have just done a pinup cover. Look, she's a hot girl. You know, you can easily just do that. But the temples and shit. It's great, man. So everyone go ahead and back this campaign. Let me put the link to it. Oh, no, the chat. It still should be pinned at the top of the chat. So if you haven't already, please do that. I know I'm going to be doing it. And, John, like I said, I'd love to, whether having you, Bobby and I have been talking because Bobby's going to be my co-host on Comic Strip Club. He's generally my co-host on my channel, but we're going to be, I'd love to talk something with you, whether it's Wolverine or something. We'll get going. I know I definitely have talked to, because we're going to go through, like, I know Rainy, whatever, we're going to go through, like, Ronin, Frank Miller's Daredevil, stuff like that.
Dude, I want to go through Frank Miller's Daredevil. I remember where I was when I read that. Because my friend had the originals. I mean, I was collecting Avengers at the time, and my buddy was collecting Daredevil. And I remember reading that on my friend's brother's bunk bed. You know, reading the death of Elektra and just being like, you know, I was just like, holy smokes. You know, I've never seen anything like that in a comic before. Yeah. And she's crawling through the streets and you're just like, what the hell is going on? You know? And then
read it. It's so mean spirited and you never see deaths like that.
Oh dude, it was evil. And then And it was about a couple issues away from 100, which I think 100 was the issue where he finally gets his Daredevil has that knockdown drag out fight with Bullseye.
Oh, I haven't seen 200. I haven't read that one yet. Is it good? Because it wasn't part of Frank Miller's run. Is that a good fight? Or is that
it's a great fight.
All right,
it's a great fight.
Because I've only read some of Denny O'Neil's run, but I didn't read that issue.
He closed that out well. He closed that story arc out well. That fight was knock down, drag out.
That cover. The John Byrne cover.
Yeah. I mean, it was brutal. And, you know, just those kind of things, it's like, you know, like I said, I remember where I was when I read that. You know, I remember where I was just sitting on my friend's brother's bunk bed reading that, just my mind being blown. You know, that's the power of comics, man.
I'm gonna have to get to read, because do you have to read the issue prior to that, or
you should? You should, because it's all a build-up. Basically, from Elektra's death to there is all a build-up to that final fight.
Okay, because I didn't read, which I know Lady Deathstrike kind of first appears there. I read 191 was the end of Frank Miller's run. Mm-hmm. I didn't read, and then after that I kind of took a break.
Yeah.
So I didn't read 192. I read some of Denny O'Neil's run, but all right, okay. I will absolutely check that out.
That's the best part of it. The best part of it was him putting kind of an exclamation mark on the Miller run.
Okay.
You know, and bringing, so, you know, it was like old school martial arts movie, man. It was revenge. You know, yeah. Revenge served cold.
That's awesome. I'll definitely.
And Miller was a big influence for me in terms of even with Black Tiger, because like his fight sequences, you know, just doing the choreography.
They're so good. I can even just visualize certain, like even the Wolverine panel at the end of the miniseries, or there. And then all else is a snick. And that's all. That's immediately can know exactly what I'm talking about.
And then you see the word snick. That's all you need to know. You're just like, oh,
yeah.
Snap.
He's able to simplify things. Yeah, even just right here. Literally, holy shit! I swear to you, I literally opened it exactly to that page.
Oh
Like,
man,
just first try. Wasn't trying. Immediately went there. That's crazy.
man, me and my friends, you gotta understand. We used to do that. We go up behind each other and just go snicked. You know, just like you're dead, fool. Just put your hand right here on somebody, and just go snicked.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
You know,
John, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a pleasure.
man.
And
Thank you, Vaughn.
Of course. I really mean it. I'd love to do this again. Yeah, next time, tune in. I'm going to have another Vaughn Coleman Presents on Tuesday with Jimmy Reyes, so make sure to check that out. We're going to be
My
talking
man
about
Jimmy.
Dragon. Yeah,
Good
Jimmy's
dude.
good people.
He is good people.
So until next time, see you guys. Oh, and if you guys are here and you're just checking out the stream, every Sunday night I have my group show with my friends like Bobby and a couple others, my trading card artist Jules, my friend Zach, and we are going to be doing this show called Hard Charges. It starts at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to get going. But thank you so much, and make sure to have a good one, guys. And back this